Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
I hope everyone is off to a great start to the week. Boone Froggett is the producer of my favorite radio show, the Lowdown Hoedown. He is also the merch and publicity guy for the Grammy Award winners, the Kentucky Headhunters. If that is not enough, Boone is the leader of the critically acclaimed band Otis, based out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. Their website is the otisband.com. Let's see, if you hear a CD skip on Hoedown, is it because of the chicken grease or because Boone and I are messaging and Boone didn't hear what was going on? So that could be my fault. Sorry, Greg. Anyhow, want to welcome my good buddy Boone Froggett to Nightlight. Hi, Boone. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mark? Good to hear from you as always, man.
Thank you for being our guest tonight on a special Wednesday night edition. Let's see, about 3 pages of notes of a stack of CDs in front of me. It's probably going to be the usual avalanche of stuff collapsing all over the desk at some point, but at least I have all kinds of little prompts here to help me get through the show. But let's see. Let's start off with some of the recent things you've been doing. You were at Roswell recently. Was that trip a rendezvous with the aliens to return Freddy to the mothership, or were they dropping off all the a replenished bag of chocolate chips for Greg's chocolate chip cookies for Greg's birthday?
Well, the aliens would probably like to have Fred Young, but we decided to keep him. No, it was I always wanted to go to Roswell, and finally got to go with the Headhunters and check it out. And we had a great time. We played a place there called the Liberty right there in Roswell downtown, right in the middle of everything, and had a great turnout, had a good time, and it's always a fun time with the Headhunters. You never know where you're going to be traveling to.
Okay. So let's start covering things a little closer to home. It seems like Bowling Green has a very active music scene. Barbara's only a short drive away. She ought to come up and see what's going on there. But with all listening to all the stuff that is discussed on the Lowdown Hoedown on WDNSFM.com, there's Otis, the Headhunters, Blackstone Cherry, Laid Back Country Picker. What is in the water in Bowling Green that is turning out so many fantastic musicians?
So it's an interesting area. It's a very culture-driven city, and right there next to WKU, the college there, and there's just a lot of different influences, coming from all over. As you said, we're only hour and a half north of Nashville, so you've got that influence coming in, and it's always been an interesting spot for bands. And the town we're from is Glasgow, Kentucky, which is about maybe 20 minutes from Bowling Green. So you have bands that kind of come up in the more rural area, kind of in Glasgow, and then you have bands that come up closer to the city in Bowling Green. And of course you got the Headhunters and Rufus Huff and Otis, where we're from, and then you got bands like Cage the Elephant and the Josephines who came up through Bowling Green. So it's a very interesting mix of bands. There's a very well-known venue in town called Tidballs, and there's a lot of small touring acts that come through there. So you can easily see an out-of-town band there on a Wednesday or Thursday night, and then they have more of the local acts on the weekends. But it's been a great place to build from. Otis just played a show there. We played in Bowling Green, Kentucky at the Spillway. That was a lot of fun. And then of course the WDNS D93, great classic rock station. I've never heard another station like it. It's really had an influence on me personally. As growing up, I was 10, 12 years old, listening to Greg do the Lowdown Hoedown, and the area I was from was so rural that I had to get in my dad's truck, and I would drive to the end of the driveway to hear the Lowdown Hoedown every Monday night. And that's where I heard stuff like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Little Walter and all that stuff for the first time, and I was instantly hooked and mesmerized, by this great blues music from 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. So yeah, just like I said, down to the radio station, it's been a very big influence on us. And another DJ there, Tommy Starr, he was the first person to ever play Otis on the radio. So D93 is a very special station to me and the band as well.
Okay, and it seems like there are just numerous businesses who are very supportive of the music scene. You mentioned the Spillway venue, the Mellow Mushroom, the Headhunters. Last CD was recorded at the Barrack Recording Studio in Glasgow. So it just seems like there's the whole town is very supportive of the music scene.
Oh, absolutely, man. There's a ton of support here in the local area, and I think that's just because there's been a lot of people who has went on to do great things, become national touring acts, win Grammys, all that stuff from this area, going back as far as the band Newgrass Revival, as Sam Bush and John Cowan started, and kind of the first jam grass band of its time, kind of came out of this area, did very well. And then you had the Headhunters. They started the Kentucky Headhunters in 1989, and they obviously had done very well. Won a Grammy and stayed on the road for years and done great things. And then Richards from the Headhunters, his son John Fred, is in Blackstone Cherry, and they've done well. And it's just kind of like it's easy to see that you can do it. You can drive around town and see a tour bus leaving out from a grocery store, and it kind of makes you realize, like, hey, I don't have to move to Nashville, or I don't have to go to L.A. I can build this from my hometown and do all the same things that all these other folks are doing, but be able to interject the culture of your own hometown, which is a special thing.
Okay. Okay, and we'll come back to the really large fan base that you have, but just kind of segue into your band, Otis. Where did you get that name?
Actually, Greg Martin of the Headhunters and Rufus Huff and Dean Smith of Rufus Huff helped us come up with the name. There was a power trio in Louisville, Kentucky in the 1970s called Otis, and Dean saw them, and he always thought that was a cool name, and they never quite, made it to be a national act or do much touring or anything like that. So he thought, hey, that's a great band name, and he kind of run that by us. We're like, yeah, man, that's perfect, and it seemed to suit us musically and visually. It's 4 letters, 1 word, very simple, very recognizable, and that's what we ended up going with. And
okay,
cool name.
I always wonder. I don't know if it had something to do with like elevators and we'll lift you up, something like that.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because Jimmy Hall said something about Otis like that one time. He said Otis will lift you up and never let you down. So he was kind of making the jab at the elevator company there. But no, there's that's kind of one reason why the website is theotisband.com, because there's the Otis Elevator Company, there's Otis Taylor, there's Otis Redding. So just trying to diversify ourselves from all the other associated Otis names out there.
Okay, so was it in 2017 you came out with Eyes of the Suns, critically acclaimed CD. The Reverend Billy F. Gibbons praises it. So, when did the band form? Like, how long are you, playing before you got into the studio to record Eyes of the Sun?
We formed around 2012. We went in to record our first album, Tough Times, a tribute to John Brim, that was released in 2014. So there's a little bit of space there between Tough Times and then Eyes of the Sun. So we got a really great chance to grow, and our first record was really special because John Brim was a blues guy. He grew up here in Hawkinsville, Kentucky. In his teenage years, he moved to Chicago and got signed to Chess Records along with Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Little Walter and all those folks. So we really wanted to make that tie to classic blues to our home state of Kentucky. And this was all really Greg Martin's idea. He gave me a CD of John Brim songs, and he's like, hey, man, you know, just a suggestion, but what would you think about, you know, Otis maybe covering maybe 2 or 3 of these songs and releasing it? You know, this stuff is pretty cool. This guy was from Kentucky. So I listened to it, and, of course, fell in love with the music. And, you know, the funny thing was I'd never heard of John Brim until he handed me that CD. And what John Brim is most known for is writing the song Ice Cream Man that Van Halen ended up including on their first album. So we go in the studio and put the first 2 or 3 songs together. So it's basically our musical arrangements with John Brim's lyrics. And it's really fun to go listen to the versions of the songs that John Brim did, and then flip over and kind of listen to what we did to him later. It's kind of an interesting comparison, but there was something about it that just worked. And Greg was like, he's like, all right, this is working. What would you think about doing, you know, a full length album of this? And we were like, yeah, you know, we were into it. It was just a very natural, easy progression for us. And at the time, we were, of course, like any young rock band from the South, we were really into the Allman Brothers Band, and we're really into, of course, stuff like, you know, Led Zeppelin and Canned Heat and Humble Pie and all that stuff. And if you listen to those bands' first albums, you'll find out that the majority of the material on those albums were blues covers that they had taken and put their own spin on. So we were, you know, trying to do that in the light of our heroes, and, you know, pay respect to John Brim and give him some notoriety as well. And there's something about it that just worked. Billy F. Gibbons loves our first album, and then he, of course, gave us a nice press quote for Eyes of the Sun as well. But this was really the album that turned Billy on to us, and he started mentioning us and podcast interviews. And I got to meet Billy on a couple occasions, once with Greg, and then another time on my own. My wife and I went to a ZZ show and hang out, and it was really cool. And we stayed in touch. And Greg and I saw ZZ Top. I guess it'd been about 2 months ago now. We got to see him at the Louisville Palace. But, you know, every band has a couple of people that are, you know, around them that are really great friends that pushes those forward. And, you know, one of those for us is definitely Billy F. Gibbons. He's brought us a lot of notoriety and a lot of attention to the band, and even had his engineer call us up, and we talked about, you know, the microphones and the amps that were used on the record, and all that really fascinated Billy. And that's something that's kind of amazing about him, is he's just as much interested in you as you are in him, which always makes for a great conversation. A very, very down to earth guy.
Okay, so you mentioned that, you know, you're growing up listening to ZZ Top and the Allmans, and in the liner notes for Eyes of the Sun, you do thank the Big House Museum. So how did that museum come into, you know, working with Otis, and, you know, what's the connection there?
Our guitar player at the time had went down to just check out the museum because, like I said, you know, we were really into the Allman Brothers thing. It was one of the forces that was really driving the band. So he went down to kind of check out the area, check out the Big House Museum. Kind of one thing led to another, and we got put on the bill to open for Wet Willie at the Capitol Theater there downtown. And kind of word got around, and the Big House reached out, and they were like, hey, what would you guys think about coming and doing an acoustic set before your show at the Cox Capitol Theater. And we're like, yeah, that'd be wonderful. So we got to know all the people at the museum and the curators, and kind of got to hanging around in that scene. And it's kind of cool. Macon, Georgia was the first place that we really got a buzz other than our hometown as a band, that people really started talking about us, coming out to see us, and that gave us some great opportunities. Like I said, we got to open for Wet Willie there, and then the same theater brought us back to play two of Jimmy Hall's birthday parties. I mean, I think we've played there maybe 4 or 5 times, and that led to a residency at the Big House Museum, which I don't think any other band has ever done. And we kind of got welcomed into that Allman Brothers family, the Allman Brothers scene. They have a festival there called the Georgia Allman Brothers Band Association, and they put on a festival each year, and we got invited to play that. And the year we played is when J-Mo's jazz band was there, so we got to meet J-Mo, and he was familiar with our first album, and we really enjoyed talking to J-Mo.
Wow.
That's something that I'll never forget was getting to meet J-Mo, because we really looked up to what he brought to the Allman Brothers Band, and the whole double drummer thing was so cool to us. So to see him play was really cool. So yeah, even the photos on Eyes of the Sun on the back, and when you open up the liner notes, those were taken by Kirk West, who was the tour manager for the Allman Brothers, and then the tour manager for Government Mule for a long time, and he was he actually owned the Big House, at one point. I guess I should give a little context to what the Big House is. The Big House is a house that the Allman Brothers Band all lived in together in the height of their career in the 70s, the original 6 members. So time passed, they decided to put a museum there. So there's all kinds of cool stuff to check out. Allman Brothers Band memorabilia, gear, clothes, posters, and the house itself really has a presence, from where those guys were there. You can there's an energy when you walk in the room, especially Dwayne's bedroom. If you go up, I could go up and sit in Dwayne's bedroom for hours. There's just a spirit there that's really interesting. And I got lucky enough to be able to play Dwayne's Gold Top in the museum after hours as well, which was what he recorded.
Wow.
The Derek and the Dominoes album, Layla with, and played on a lot of Allman Brothers stuff as well. So, the Allman Brothers Band, Macon, Georgia, Capricorn Records, that whole scene is very close to our heart and very close to what we want to do.
Okay, so let's switch over to from Dwayne's Gold Top to. Are you playing a sitar on Relief in C?
Yes, that's an electric sitar. That was our original. The other guitar player in the band's that was his part that he played on there. I'm playing slide guitar, just acoustic slide guitar on that one, and then our buddy Danny Williams is playing electric mandolin on that one.
Okay, so yeah, that one kind of sounds like you listen to a lot of Led Zeppelin 3 or Battle of Evermore for that one. That's I really enjoy that one.
Oh yeah, we're really big on instrumentals and improvisation. That's something that we really enjoy as a band, and we had to include an instrumental on that track, and I think it gives you a nice break between the energy of all the other songs. It's something that's it's something you can feel. There's a power there, but it's also just kind of mindless. It's a good way to clean the slate between songs.
Yeah, I just really like what you're doing with an acoustic song.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's let's see, what else can we get into? Okay, so in 2017, Eyes of the Sun came out, your second CD, and you had a chance to do a UK tour. How did that experience influence what you continue to do, and did it open you up to new ideas?
Oh, man, absolutely. The first time we went over was in 2018. We went over and did all just headlining club dates. It was our first time there. Interesting. When we flew into London, there was a big snow on, which was not common for them. So a lot of the transportation, the trains and stuff like that were shut down, and that greatly influenced our turnout for that first gig. But it was interesting to see how they reacted to something that's just so that we're used to seeing all the time here. But man, amazing experience. When you go tour the UK, EU, mainland Europe, they have a different kind of reverence and respect for music that we don't get to experience here. Of course, we love all of our venues and all our people over here in the U.S. that we play for, but it's like, man, people they'll go get 3 or 4 drinks before the show starts because they don't want to lose their place in the crowd, and they're just zoned in on every note, every word, and there's times during in the songs and in between songs that you can hear a pin drop just because the intense focus they have on the music there. So it was an incredible experience for us to go over and kind of dip our toes in that culture, and just really amazing. We came back in the summer of 2019, and we did some shows with Almond Betts. So we got to play Bad Hersberg in Germany, which is a festival that's a lot like Woodstock, but it's actually a year older than Woodstock. So it was very much in that spirit of just the love of music, and everybody in their bare feet in the dust, in the mud. And it's what I find interesting about European festivals is how multi-genre the lineups are. We were on the bill with, it was Doyle Bramall II was there, we were there, UFO, Graham Nash, but they also had a lot of like DJ EDM stuff. They had acoustic folk stuff. They had traditional African folk music, which I really enjoyed, and it was an interesting mesh of cultures that you really don't get to experience on one festival date here in the U.S. It was just a total different vibe, total different experience for us, and it's great to play for those people who are so welcoming, because they don't get to hear a lot of Southern rock music because it's not authentically played there. It's like as much as we all love the Beatles and want to be the Beatles, we just don't have that in our DNA. And they're the same way with Southern rock music. So when they get a chance to, experience, the real deal Southern rock stuff, folks get really excited about it, which was cool. We had a great time, and hope to go back in the future.
Okay, and you also got to play at the Caerphilly Castle in Wales. That sounds like a really interesting backdrop, or was a stage set up inside the castle. How what was that scene like?
It was an amazing experience, man. That was the first show on our run over there in 2019. We we were there supporting Blackstone Cherry and got to play Caerphilly Castle in Wales. And it was, like I've told you before, it's one of the oldest structures, that I've been able to experience, so far, because, our culture in America here only dates back so far as architecture and things like that go. So to be able to take that in and show up there the first gig and play a show at a castle was pretty special. They had our dressing room way up in a tower, so big spiral staircase, and we got to explore the castle and the grounds, and there was something kind of ironic and kind of funny about it. Two bands from Kentucky playing southern rock music at a castle in Wales. It was just kind of a interesting thing to experience.
Okay. Hope there's some photos of it, or I'll have to look for anything on YouTube. That sounds really intriguing. So,
yeah, man, I'll send you some photos.
Okay, cool. Let's see what guitar are you using for Eyes of the Sun, and you're also playing slide. What do you prefer to use for slide? Glass or a brass slide?
Most generally in studio, I'll use a glass slide. There's a company called Rocky Mountain Slides that I'm endorsed by that kind of keeps me up on slides. And there's a signature Greg Martin model for all you guitar heads out there. If you want the same slide that Greg has, they make it. And man, this guy makes some of the best slides. He uses a lot of different materials as well. I've got a couple of brass slides that I use live because I got to where I was breaking the glass ones because I was always dropping them on the road, that sort of thing. So Dot from Rocky Mountain Slides made me a couple of brass ones that I use out on the road. They're a little bit heavier than the glass, which is probably good for me live because you get so much energy and adrenaline that the brass kind of slows you down, as where you can play really fast with a glass slide because it's so light and the movements is a little bit different on a glass slide. But I really enjoy playing slide guitar. I think as far as instrumentation goes, it's one of the closest things you can get to emulating the human voice. I mean, I can sing something and then almost just play the same thing back to myself on a slide guitar, to where it's a little bit trickier. It's a little bit different thing if you're just playing the fingered notes.
It is. Do you find that there is, since I'm not like my musical abilities are limited to pushing play, so do you find that there is a difference in sound between the brass and glass slide?
Oh, absolutely, man. It's just the vibrations and the resonance and the thickness. Generally, a brass slide or any sort of metal slide is going to sound a little bit darker tone-wise, and then the glass is going to be a little bit brighter. So yeah, those are kind of the main differences in those two materials. You can get a similar tone out of each one, but there's going to be differences. But yeah, there's definitely a audible difference, and then there's definitely a difference when you play, because it feels a little heavier on the hand, and it causes you to slow down and take your time a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I just I think interesting subject. I just don't hear it all that well since I'm not really musically oriented. But I like getting people's opinions on the little technical issues of playing. But
sure.
Yeah, and you were signed by Cleopatra Records, and they have some legendary names on their label. Howling Wolf, you mentioned him earlier. Zephyr and early Tommy Bolin bands. Yes, Robbie Krieger, Rick Derringer, solo Jimmy Page and Jim Croce. And I was like looking through the list. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of huge names on their roster. And there's Otis there in the lineup as well.
Oh yeah, we're on the list there, and they have a big film side to their label as well. They put out a lot of movies. We had a song featured in the movie they put out called The 27 Club, which features Todd Rundgren actually starred in the movie, and he has some songs. Yeah, he has some songs on the soundtrack as well as Trent Reznor. And they, if you have the DVD version of the movie, Street Survivors, about Artemis Pyle's view on Leonard Skinner, there's I think 4 songs of ours that are featured on the end credit scene of the special DVD version.
Wow. Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Artemis is a buddy of ours.
Yeah, and he's the drummer for Leonard Skinner.
He was at the time of the plane crash and things like that. He's got his own band, his own thing going right now called Artemis Pyle Band. That's really good. They do gigs with the Headhunters pretty often, and I've got to know some of those guys through them. And really cool movie and really cool music that they were able to put out around it.
Obviously, working with some of these names, like you just mentioned, Artemis Pyle and Jimmy Hall, Johnny Bolin, Billy Gibbons. It's just knowing them is enough to really inspire you to keep plugging along at what you're doing. But does everyone, or like you and as well as everyone else in the band, come from families that were also musicians? Where did that inspiration come from?
For me, my grandfather, David Froggett Sr., he was a award-winning old-time fiddler here in Kentucky, and my father, he's a great honky-tonk, like Bakersfield style country guitar player. So I was on stage from the time I was 8 years old, and I've been there ever since. And the rest of the guys in the band have a similar background. John grew up with his family singing spirituals around the piano. Dale comes from a very musical family. This is interesting. Dale's mother actually works at the spillway as their front of house person. So that was a first for me, having someone's mom in the band mix us. That was quite the experience. And Alex comes from a very musical background as well. His uncle is Chris Hardesty from Rufus Huff, so he has a obviously very steeped musical background. And I think that's really what it takes to push you forward and make you a great player. If you get started young and you get the kind of force driving behind you at a young age, it really helps move things along and it makes it makes it more tangible and not just a dream. You really have the motivation to go out and do it.
Okay, so you've been doing some writing. Does that mean you're getting ready to go into the studio with the new lineup of Otis?
Yeah, man, that's something that we're really excited about. Man, we haven't as a band, we haven't got to go in the studio for some time. So to take the new lineup in and record some stuff is going to be really fun. We're going to have Greg Martin from the Headhunters at the helm producing and watching over us, and hopefully we'll make some good stuff. And we've been fortunate enough to get out and play some shows with the new lineup. Got some more stuff coming up, and I think that really helps prepare a band to go into the studio, because you kind of build this extra sense off of each other, where you don't have to talk about things. You just kind of let them happen on stage, and the same in the studio, and it transfers onto the tape more times than not. And we enjoy recording, in a setting where we can all play live, as opposed to putting the drums down first and then go back and putting the bass and then just building it part after part. We prefer to get the rhythm track kind of all together on one take, and then if a solo needs to be overdubbed or a vocal part needs to be overdubbed, and then that's when we do that. But it's so much more real sounding when you can get the band in a room all playing together at once.
Yeah, I wondered about, okay, when you or whatever band however they choose to record, and for a while like CDs were what everyone wanted, better sound. Now there's been the reemergence of vinyl, or there are e-versions where you can just download the album or just one song. How has all the different versions people can get affected how people buy your music? Is like all the options making it causing you to have changes when you record things in the studio, or is just after it's completed, the consumers are dictating how they want to listen to music through all the variety of options that are out there now? It seems like the whole industry has changed since I was a kid and bought a few 8-tracks, some 45s.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Ultimately, through, streaming and the digital age, it makes your recorded music more available to people. But at the same time, it kind of devalues the worth of recorded music, because, people can get on, Apple Music or Spotify, and they can, basically listen to it for free, because the streaming rates are so low, as opposed to, a couple of years ago, the streaming thing hadn't quite took off yet, and kind of the CD was still king. But, as you know, I sell merch for the Kentucky Headhunters, and the vinyl outsells the CD every single night now, which I find interesting, because most people are like, hey, I don't have a CD player in my car anymore, so I'm not, I'm going to get the vinyl to listen to at home, as opposed to a CD that I can't really use, type thing. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see where it all goes. I think streaming could be a very good thing ultimately, if they could get a fair streaming rate worked out. It's kind of the money you make from streaming is kind of laughable at this point. It's more just about promotion than anything else. But I'm guilty of it too. I have a subscription to Apple Music, and it gives me access to things that I probably wouldn't have access to otherwise. So you kind of got to look at it from all sides. But it looks like right now that the vinyl and streaming are the two biggest things going.
Well, if you just stream a song, you don't get the full experience of having like the album. It's much larger than the CD, but like how can you not get the artwork that accompanies like Sgt. Pepper? You kind of miss out on that. Like Otis has interesting artwork. So maybe people just want to pay like 99 cents for the one song, but you don't get the full album experience with the download. It just depends on the person. I like reading the liner notes, some of the histories, behind. I don't know, some of the live recordings. We can get into that in a little bit, but I was just wondering how what you thought of all the options that are out there now.
I mean, for me, I'll always be a vinyl guy, because I love that experience of sitting in the floor and dragging all the liner notes out and seeing who played what instrument on what track and who produced. I just couldn't imagine listening to something like like Pet Sounds or Led Zeppelin 1 without having that experience of looking at the art, looking at the liner notes, as we talked about before. And hopefully there's enough people like you and I out there, Mark, that like to experience music that way.
And you just kind of jump into that now with what the people that you as the producer of the Lowdown Hoedown, you're talking with some of the guests prior to their appearance, and Greg gets some of these people, like John Smith. I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to the show anyways. So, I just like to hear what John has to say. I really know a whole lot about him, other than what you posted on the blurb for the show. And and as you know, John and Greg were talking, he was saying, "Oh yeah, I was on the Roadwork CD." It's like, oh my gosh, that's Edgar Winter's band, and Rick Derringer is playing there. Johnny shows up for one of the songs, and you get all the, what is it, like 15-minute long Tobacco Road.
That's a great track.
Just all, there's all these, big name people, and John was, was talking about appearing on that CD, and he would go on to, be the sax player for Albert Collins.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to hear, Greg interview these people who were part of these, live recordings at legendary venues from like over 50 years ago, and they're just talking about how different recording something live was then versus now.
Yeah.
Get all the these backstories, just really amazing, behind the scenes stories that come up on the shows on routine basis, and I think that's one of the reasons why I really admire what the Hoedown does is it appeals to my interest in history. It's not Atlantis and all the UFO sightings prior to Roswell, but it someone like John helps you to cover all these gaps from the early 70s to what's going on today.
Yeah, that's a really amazing, really cool part of the Lowdown Hoedown, and a lot of this stuff just happens organically. Greg's very well known in the guitar world. He has some notoriety from the Headhunters, but mostly Greg is known for just being a nice, humble, open guy, and he has a love for music that these people want to connect with Greg. They want to talk to him. So a lot of times it's as simple as these people basically saying, hey, I'd like to talk to Greg about coming on the show, and then they kind of hook up through Facebook and a couple phone calls prior to the interview, and it just happens. And the really cool thing is I've got to just kind of step back and watch Greg do some of these interviews, and just the excitement he gets from it is very it's very tangible. You can feel it in the room because he loves all this music and the people that play on it so much. And it's I'm sure you've heard a lot of standard 15-minute interviews. There's only so much that can be covered. It's like, where are you from? When's your next album coming out? It's like all these stock questions that that artists have to hear all the time. But as opposed to the Lowdown Hoedown, to where it's a conversation that they actually want to have, and Greg is knowledgeable enough on the careers of these folks to pick their brains, and he can pull stuff out of people that you don't get in any other interview, because he makes them comfortable, and he makes them, feel valued for the work that they've done. So it was it really cool. I've got to watch him interview, most of these are phone interviews, but you have to watch him do, Elliot Easton and Ken Simmons and Jimmy Hall and War Haynes, all these cool people. But like I said, Greg really has a knack for interviews and making the listener just kind of feel like you're a fly on the wall, witnessing a conversation, and which makes it really special.
Yeah, and with other recent guests like say Sean Chambers or Rick Holmstrom, okay, they're haven't been around as long as say John Smith, but they're a little bit younger guys, but they've had some fascinating careers as well. Rick's with doing a lot of stuff with Mavis Staples. They're live at Hope at the Hideout was a terrific CD of kind of like gospel music. Mavis has a legendary career even before she went solo. But you're dealing with Greg is also dealing with some of the up and coming next generation of blues guitarists. What are you what trends are you seeing from the guys who are getting themselves established now?
It's interesting to watch the blues rock market as a whole is really opening up, and there's a lot of things becoming acceptable in that market now that may have not been acceptable maybe 10 years ago. It seems like it's a lot more welcoming environment than it's what once was. If you go on, Spotify or Apple Music and you're looking, going through the genre categories, you'll see, Joe Bonamassa as the kind of as the image, the picture, the poster child for this music, and then there's a lot of folks that'll argue that, hey, that's not blues rock, that's just rock and roll. So there's a lot of less of that view going away. And there's a whole lot more of, hey, anybody that can keep this music going and keep educating people on blues and early rock, let's let them in here and see what they can do. So it's been really cool to see that genre open up, and and hopefully people like Rick Holstrom, it makes it easier for them to get discovered, because Rick is absolutely the real deal. He's one of my favorite guitar players, and I've had the opportunity to tell him as much. Rick Holstrom should be a household name for what he's able to do on the guitar. But after spending most of his career as a sideman, just a lot of people aren't aware. So the more this blues rock genre opens up and people become more educated and are willing to let other influences in, probably the bigger this market will get, and the more notoriety that bands like that will receive, which I think is a great thing, because there's really, especially radio wise, there's really not a good avenue for new rock and roll music. If you're listening to a new rock station, they're probably playing more active, heavy hard rock stuff, as opposed to blues rock that really doesn't have a avenue in mainstream media. So we've kind of had to create a home for ourselves, and then Southern rock is part of that too. Southern rock has kind of got soaked into the part the Americana market, and then part the blues rock market. So it's interesting to kind of just sit back and watch all this stuff unfold and see what happens.
Okay, and you are using a custom-made pedal. Can you explain what can be done with the pedal?
Yeah, man. There's a buddy of mine from Mifflin, Kentucky. His name's Jeff Bowen. He has a company called Analog Pedals, and he's done a couple of signature artist series pedals. He did one on Greg Martin. He's done one on myself and Chris Robinson for Blackstone Cherry. Mine is called Boone's Mojo Box, and it's kind of like two pedals in one. On one side, there's a tremolo pedal, and then on the tremolo circuit, rather, and then on the other side, there's a chorus circuit, and you can use them independently, or you can blend the two together, and it kind of gives you kind of that Pop Staples sound. It's a little bit different than that, but kind of in that vein of old blues, gospel, R&B, tremolo sound, and then you can add the chorus, which kind of gives it a little more spacey, modern twist on that vintage tremolo sound.
Okay, so are you using that live, or just in the studio, or both? How's that work?
I use it live periodically, and then I'm definitely got some plans for it in the studio. There's I have a couple of Jeff's pedals from Analog, and my buddy Scott Kay out in California has a company called BMF Effects, and I also use a couple of his pedals as well. So I'm not a big pedal guy, but my mind's kind of opening up more to them recently, and pedals are cool if you know how to use them. The thing is, I never wanted my playing to rely on effects. I wanted, to be a good player just straight through the amp. But now I kind of feel like I've reached a point where I can start to bring some of those other elements in and use them tastefully.
Okay, so on the next recording project you do, the listeners will be able to hear maybe a little bit more of effects that you can do with pedals.
Absolutely, man. I'll definitely use my signature pedal on some stuff, and I've got a old Fender. It's from the '70s, an old reverb unit that I'll probably use on some stuff as well. But yeah, it's gonna be fun going in the studio with the new lineup and new gear.
Okay, and let's see, we plug the big Rufus Huff show with Wishbone Ash. That is June 20th at the Capitol Theater in Bowling Green. So, what's the story with such a the Rufus Huff band opening for such a legendary British progressive rock band?
It's going to be really cool. As you said, it's at the Capitol Arts Center there on the square in downtown Bowling Green, which is just a beautiful, small, historic theater. I've had the pleasure of seeing Government Mule there, and Johnny Winter and some other folks. And Greg and I actually played that theater as Cedar Flat Lightning a couple of months ago, and it's just a beautiful room. But no, there's a guy in town that started a production company and is starting to bring some bring some acts into the theater. There haven't been that many shows at this theater in the past couple of years, so this is really exciting that he was bringing Wishbone Ash in, and then Rufus Huff is just going to be the icing on the cake. Rufus Huff, man, a very, very special band to me and to Otis in general. There probably wouldn't be an Otis at all without Rufus Huff. It's just a great band.
Okay, and Wishbone Ash seems to have a few CDs that really seem to put the hooks in people about almost kind of like operatic type progressive rock music. How do you define their influence in today's music world?
Oh man, I can definitely hear it. Like, as you said, it's kind of progressive hard rock, almost a proto metal type sound. I can definitely hear that. As music has progressed over the years, bands like Cactus and Wishbone Ash and Captain Beyond, bands that have that hard rock, but at the same time they kind of have this proggy kind of operatic feel to them as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them live. That's kind of one of those bands I never thought I'd get to see live, and then here they are coming to Little Old Bowling Green. So it'll be fun.
Okay, and besides all the touring you're doing with the Headhunters, Otis will be out and about a lot this summer as well. You're going to be in Missouri. What are some other venues?
Yeah.
You were just in Indiana, I believe.
Yeah, we were up in Illinois. That's where
our
first show in over 3 years. We came to Marion, Illinois, to one of our favorite venues, John Brown's on the Square, and got to do a headlining set there, and it was just great, man. We had people from Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, of course, folks that were local to the area around the venue, but it was just a great melting pot of Otis family. It was great to after not being able to play live for 3 years, to step on stage and you see folks wearing Otis T-shirts, Otis hats that they had bought over the years. It was a very good feeling. We had been through a lot as a band, and it took a lot to make that first show happen. Then we got to play at kind of a homecoming show, if you will, at the Spillway there in Bowling Green, and had a packed house there. But June 9th and 10th, we're going to be at the Arcadia Valley Barbecue Battle, and we're going to be playing there 2 nights in a row, and that's in Ironton, Missouri. So that should be a lot of fun. We'll be able to change up our set list each night and kind of have a different experience each night. And we got a lot of dates that are getting ready to announce. We got a show in Macon, Georgia, that's going to be announcing soon. Huntsville, Alabama will be announcing soon. So we got some stuff up our sleeve. So get ready for a lot of show announcements.
Okay, because you do have basically a family of followers on your all the tours, Lisa and Curtis, and D. Frost put a lot of videos on face, live stream those videos on Facebook for everyone to watch.
Oh yeah, man. D and his wife Nancy are such great people. D is one of the admins on our Otis Blues Crew fan page, and him, John Radford, Alan Menningrode, so many of those folks on there have been one of the biggest inspirations to get back out there and play live, because people want to hear the music, they want to feel the music again, and we've over the years, we've become family to each other, so we miss seeing them as much as they miss seeing us, and they're just great folks, and I've got to know Curtis and Lisa really well through them coming to all the Headhunter shows, and they're fans of Otis as well. And Curtis and I talk blues pretty often, because he come up in an area where he got to see a lot of blues acts that that I'll never get to see. So we always have fun talking about blues music, and he always brings us treats, and we enjoy that. Treats go a long way, and
just ask Freddie.
Yeah, that's right. You got to watch your treats on the Headhunter bus. They'll get stolen or disposed of.
Greg can verify that happened, but and usually wrap up the year with a Jambodians Christmas show. The last few that have been posted on YouTube, those were really enjoyable. Are one of those shows planned for this year?
Yes, there's a Jambodians Holiday Bash coming up this year, presented by the Sunray Foundation, that provides children in the area with musical instruments, and it's such a cool thing to be a part of. And our buddy Tony Lindsay, they're back home in Bowling Green, kind of heads all that up, and it's been really cool. I've been going to Jambodians for about 10 years now, and it's made such cool, talented people accessible to me. Like, you can pretty much count on seeing Jimmy Hall every year. Sam Bush has been there. John Cowan's been there. Black Oak, Arkansas played one year. The Headhunters played one year. So just being able to be around that caliber of people growing up was really, really important to me, because Jimmy Hall's become I get to see Jimmy 4 or 5 times a year. We've become great friends. As I said before, he played on our first album. He got us opening for Wet Willie, and then we got to play his birthday parties, and it was really interesting. Last summer, the Headhunters did a show with Hank Williams Jr., and a lot of people don't know this, but Jimmy Hall is Hank Williams Jr.'s band leader, and it was very cool to see him work in that capacity. It was kind of funny, because he was there as Hank's band leader, and then I was there selling merch for the Headhunters, and it was a total different experience for Jimmy and I to just kind of keep our heads down and work all day, as opposed to taking our normal spot center stage, and of course he showed up to work in his Otis hat, which I thought was cool.
That is cool. So, okay, and I know we're kind of getting low on time, and things you need to do, and I do too. So, but I did. You did bring to my attention about John Carpenter was also from Bowling Green, and he incorporated some, his personal memories into some of his acclaimed films. So what's angle of horror movie connection to Bowling Green?
That's a really cool subject. If you watch if you watch the first Halloween, and then throughout the all the different incarnations of it, they've mentioned it. But Smith's Grove in that's kind of a little town between Glasgow and Bowling Green. They mention Swiss Grove Sanitarium and Swiss Grove a lot. And there's a couple of street names. They mention Russellville Road a lot, and Russellville Police Department. So those are all names that came from our area. And I always thought that was cool that he thought enough of our area to attach it to some of his work and some of his writing. And I'm obviously a big horror movie fan, so I love the behind the scenes details like that.
Yeah, and take you up a few exits. Next time you stop at play at Jurgles outside of Pittsburgh, and go up to the Evans City Cemetery and see where the opening of Night of the Living Dead was filmed.
Man, that tore me up when you told me that. If when you're traveling on a bus, sometimes you kind of get disoriented to your geography. So I didn't quite realize that I was in Romero country at Jurgles.
Yep, just about 15 minutes up the interstate. Well, yeah, and just next time you stop at Jurgles, we'll get there a few minutes early. We'll do a quick trip up the Interstate 79 and see the Evans City Cemetery where cinematic history was made.
I'll take you up on that. I had a similar thing happen when the Headhunters played. They played this place called the Orange Blossom Opry in Florida. And as we were leaving the venue, the bus driver looks over and says, well, that some of the underwater shots from Creature from the Black Lagoon was shot, 5 miles from here. And I was like, no, I had no idea. So you never know what iconic movie was shot where you are when you're on the road.
Cool, cool stuff. It's we covered that a few weeks ago when Dave Godsword's Horror Guide to Florida.
Oh wow!
I think he has it mentioned in there. The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Jaws 2 was filmed in some Florida locations. They made that like a island that they could pull out for it into the ocean that looked like that cable junction where they were marooned at the end of Jaws 2. So it's interesting to hear those behind the scenes stories of where movies were filmed locally and I'm pretty sure the house where the Night of the Living Dead was the majority of the movie was shot in the house. I think that's been torn down since then, but the graveyard's still there, and it's really a lot of things were just shot within a few feet of each other. It wasn't across a huge expanse of a graveyard. It was everything is just a few steps from each other. It's the Blair tombstone, and where Barbara kneels down, put the flowers for her dad's on his grave. That's all. Just right next to each other.
That's fascinating, man.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how movies are composed. They just get out of the car, get the actors and actresses out, pull the cameras out of the trunk, and just everything just right there, and put everything back in and drive off to the next location.
of course, Return of the Living Dead was set in Louisville, Kentucky, but I don't think any of that was filmed here, of course. But interesting tie from my neck of the woods to yours.
Yeah, as well as the blues. So
yeah,
okay,
yeah, man.
Yeah. So we've been on for about 80 minutes. How's that sound for an exciting talk about the history of the blues and where it's going, and we can wrap it up there unless you have something else you want to cover.
No, man. I think I think we covered a lot of ground.
Okay, good. Well, just keep me posted about when your next CD comes out. We'll have you on to discuss that and anything else Otis is doing. So, Boone, do you want to give out the websites and anything else that you'd want the listeners to, where they can learn about you and join the Otis Blues Cruise and or whatever the Facebook is, Otis Crew. Is that the right term?
A Blues Crew, yeah. CREW, yeah.
Okay, and just give out all the contact stuff, and we'll call it an evening then.
Perfect, man. Big thanks to you and Barbara for having me on. For all things Otis, check out theotisband.com. For the Headhunters, check out thekentuckyheadhunters.com. And a big thanks. I know the band is listening. Big thanks to my wife. I know she's listening. And big shout out to Zamitis Guitars and Rocky Mountain Slides and just all the folks listening out there. I've had a great time talking to you, Mark.
Oh, I had a lot of fun too. Hopefully, we can inspire people to get out there and keep practicing and get eventually get into the studio and make a CD.
There you go.
Yeah, exchange information from experienced people, and hopefully it inspires the listeners. So I kind of wrap things up there, and thanks Barbara for producing tonight's show. And Barbara's going to be back, I think, at least Sunday night with Solaris, and I think she has Brian J. Jones coming up with a fascinating look at Dr. Seuss. So keep checking Barbara's website for those dates. And so I want to thank everyone again. Thanks, Boone. Thanks, Greg, for doing your show, and I hope get more people listening to the Lowdown Hoedown on Monday nights. And Boone, thanks for producing all those shows. That helps to keep me focused on the importance of history. So I want to thank everyone again, and we will be talking to you sometime soon. Thanks, everyone. Good night.